Well, the women have been reeling in recent weeks on The Apprentice. 5 straight female candidates in a row have been fired.
So, Christy, you didn't fight for yourself, and you're fired. Erica, you never had a strong game plan. You were frantic under pressure. And worst of all, you let your emotions dictate who came into the boardroom. Erica.
Don't say it, Mr. Trump.
You're fired. Jesse, I hated the way you took so much crap from Omarosa. But worse was the way you took it.
Please.
I have no
don't.
choice, and I have to say that you're fired.
So the question we asked this morning, is this really what happens to women in the real business world? George Ross and Carolyn Kepcher are the other stars of The Apprentice. They work with the Donald at the Trump Organization. And Sheila Wellington is a professor of management at New York University's Business School. Good morning to all of you.
Good morning.
So the women are having a tough time. Now, when the men had a tough time, Sheila, in the beginning, 4 lost in a row, we didn't say anything that it was societal. But now we're looking at this issue. Is it possible that what the women are facing now, and we'll go over some of the things they seem to be doing wrong, does it provide a mirror on what goes on in the real work world?
I asked my students that. I did a survey. They say no.
No correlation whatsoever.
Very, very slight. Very, very slight. It's not real life.
Do you both agree with that?
I agree with it completely. I think that you really have to understand that what was done is in the context of the show. The context of the show, the way it was set up, is you had the men against the women. So it just turned out that you had 8 men the first time to choose who was going to go off, and for the first 4 times. Some of the women were weak, but they never showed up on the losing team.
But the behaviors that the women are showing that are getting them fired by the Donald, Carolyn, do you think that actually women, and you have an experience in this, you're in the Trump Organization, do women show those behaviors in the real workforce?
Well, of course they do. I mean, you know, I've always said, sex sells, and they were using that, and it works. But after a period of time, we wanted to see a little more brain power instead of the skirts.
Oh, I think completely. As on my side at that point, that the successful corporate people look at brains. They don't look at sex or the women.
I think George is right. I asked my students, 45 women MBA students at Stern, do women use sex in the workplace? Answer, no.
No.
2 women said yes, they'd seen it, and they said in both cases it ended up badly for the women.
Last several weeks, here are the reasons that these women have been fired. They're too emotional. They're falling prey to bickering and infighting on the women's team. They're unable to take criticism, and they don't stand up for themselves. Let's take them one at a time. George, are women more emotional than men in the workforce?
You can't generalize.
You're bumpering back and forth.
You can't generalize.
Give me an answer.
The answer is, are they more emotional than men in the workplace? Probably.
Yeah, Carolyn?
Some could be. It really just depends on the person. I think you have some emotional people, some not so emotional people.
Sheila, when you asked your students, what'd they say?
They said, maybe.
No, you're worse than those 2. I was looking for you for the truth.
I'm telling you what the students said.
All right, but does the fact that women may at times be emotional in the workplace, does it count more against them than it would if a man were to get emotional in the workplace?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because it's a stereotype, and once you fall into a stereotype, the whole problem with the stereotype falls on your head. Then you're supposed to bicker, then you're supposed to be unstable, then you're supposed to be risk-averse, then you're supposed to be not really committed to your career, and you're finished.
You mentioned bickering, all right? The women seem to be getting involved in a lot of infighting and bickering. When guys on a team start to bicker, it's said they're jockeying for position, showing their power. When women do it, it's called catfighting, okay?
A lot of the catfighting was basically in the suite. In the real business world, we don't all live together. So, you can talk that roommate talk if you want to, and I think the catalyst to that happened to be one individual that caused all these cat fights. I didn't see them really bickering about other situations, mostly about this one person.
You never saw it on the when they're doing the tasks. You don't see the.
Are men better team players, George?
I think men are more adept at teamwork, yes, than
maybe
women.
More used to being on part of a team?
Too. I also.
You're looking at me, she just went, wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
You don't think so?
No, I don't.
I don't either.
Not really. Not in the real
That's
world.
different. So this is one of the things that came out.
Yeah.
But
women are more likely to gang up on a guy, though, apparently.
As far as emotion is concerned, emotion is good, but it has to be controlled. So the question is, how long do you deal with that emotion, and do you really let it affect your work product? If the answer is yes, you got a problem.
When criticism is leveled at the men, they seem to say, wait a second, I don't take that, I don't buy that, here's why I did what I did, and they stand up for themselves. From what I've seen in the tapes, okay, but from that's what I've seen in the tapes. What I've seen in the last few weeks on the tapes, the women go, oh, you know, they don't fight for themselves.
I asked my students, what would you advise women to do in dealing with powerful men like Donald Trump? And you know what they said? They said, get your facts, have your information, be confident, and never say you're sorry. They're smart
So
women.
the best defense is a good offense.
That's right. It's a good offense.
I was a little disappointed in some of the
You can
responses
prove your
of the women.
case.
You were what?
I was disappointed with some of the women in the boardroom.
You
because
wanted
they
them to
really-
stick up for themselves more?
Absolutely. Absolutely I did. Especially Jessie and Christy. I thought Christy was a stronger person than that. And she probably is. She's a very bright girl. But that was very disappointing.
So basically what it seems you're telling me is that these women who are gathered on this particular show are not the real world. That they probably were brought here for other reasons. Wouldn't that be true?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think you really have to take into account the extent of their learning experience. And I would say at that point they could be a good cross-section of women in the real world.
I asked my students how, literally, I surveyed that class, and then they came out and spoke about it.
And
they said, those women don't look like women in the business world. They don't dress like women in the business world.
Thank
They
you
were
all.
picked.
Absolutely correct.